Let me ask you something uncomfortable. When was the last time you had an original thought? Not a recycled opinion from social media, not a belief handed down by your parents, your teachers, or your culture, but a thought that came from you, raw, unfiltered, independent. You might want to answer quickly, but stop for a moment. Be honest with yourself. Because here's the terrifying truth. Most people will go their entire lives without ever truly thinking for themselves. They will mistake borrowed ideas for their own. They will confuse the comfort of consensus for truth. And in doing so, they will live lives that are not theirs. And maybe, just maybe, you're one of them. We grow up in cages too invisible to notice. School teaches us to repeat, not to question. Religion often hands us certainty, not curiosity. Society whispers what we're supposed to want: money, status, approval. And before we know it, our minds are filled with noise that isn't ours. Plato warned us about this more than 2,000 years ago in his allegory of the cave. Imagine prisoners chained in darkness, staring at shadows on the wall. To them, those shadows are reality. But the truth, the sunlight outside, is too painful, too blinding for most to face. Does that sound familiar? Because here's the cruel irony. The world hasn't changed that much. Most people still live in caves of illusion. The only difference is that our shadows are broadcast in high definition. Social media algorithms shape what we see. Politicians feed us narratives designed to keep us passive. Companies craft desires in our minds that feel natural, but were engineered. And yet, we call this freedom.
Think about it. Why is it that the most foolish, arrogant, or corrupt individuals so often rise to positions of power? Machiavelli knew the answer. In The Prince, he explained that power does not reward virtue. It rewards manipulation, cunning, and the ability to deceive. Leaders are not chosen for their wisdom, but for their skill in controlling perception. And we, the masses, make it easy for them. Because when you don't think for yourself, someone else will gladly do the thinking for you. Nietzsche went even further. He believed that most people secretly prefer not to think. Why? Because thinking independently is a heavy burden. It means carrying the weight of uncertainty. It means being willing to stand alone, outside the herd, stripped of the comforting illusions everyone else clings to. He called those rare individuals who dared to break away the free spirits. But most, they remain slaves. Slaves to habit, to tradition, to the crowd. So here's the question. Where do you stand? Let's strip this down to something brutally honest. Think of the opinions you defend most passionately. Your politics, your morals, your beliefs about success, about happiness, about love. How many of those are truly yours, and how many were planted in you like seeds by your upbringing, your culture, or even by forces you don't realize are controlling you? There's a chilling concept in psychology called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It shows that the least competent people are often the most confident in their opinions, while the truly wise doubt themselves. Why? Because ignorance blinds you to your own ignorance. Meanwhile, wisdom reveals the complexity of everything, and that makes you humble, uncertain, even restless. But here's the catch. Society rewards the loud confidence of fools, not the quiet doubts of the wise. Which is why Bonhoeffer, the German philosopher who resisted the Nazis, once wrote that stupidity is more dangerous than evil. Evil can be exposed, confronted, even defeated. But stupidity? Stupidity hides in plain sight, wearing the mask of certitude. It spreads like a virus, infecting entire nations until people no longer recognize the truth, even when it's staring them in the face. And history proves him right.
Think of every civilization that has fallen, not from natural disaster, not from foreign invasion, but from within. Rome collapsed not just because of enemies, but because decadence, corruption, and blind loyalty rotted it from the inside. Nietzsche warned that when a society values comfort over truth, when it worships conformity over courage, it becomes weak. He even predicted that modern democracies, so proud of their freedom, would eventually degenerate into what he called a herd morality, where people vote not for justice but for safety, not for truth but for what makes them feel good. Sound familiar? Look around. We live in an age where freedom of thought is celebrated in theory but punished in practice. Question the wrong narrative and you're shamed. Refuse to play along with the crowd and you're excluded. We are told that we're individuals, but deep down, you know the truth. Most people are terrified of being different. And maybe that includes you. So let me challenge you. When was the last time you risked being hated for speaking your mind? When was the last time you stood alone against the majority, not out of arrogance, but because something in your soul told you it was right? When was the last time you asked yourself, not your parents, not society, not your favorite influencer, but yourself, what do I actually believe? What do I actually want? If you struggle to answer, don't feel ashamed. Most people can't. That's the point. We are trained not to ask. But here's the liberating twist. The moment you begin asking, the chains start to crack.
Let me tell you a story. There's an ancient parable of a farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbors came to console him. "What bad luck," they said. But the farmer simply replied, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returned, bringing with it 3 wild horses. "What good luck," the neighbors exclaimed. Again, the farmer said, "Maybe." The following day, the farmer's son tried to tame one of the wild horses, fell, and broke his leg. "Such terrible luck," said the neighbors. The farmer answered, "Maybe." Soon after, soldiers came to draft young men into the army. Because of his broken leg, the son was spared. Do you see the point? True wisdom isn't about clinging to rigid opinions. It's about holding the uncertainty of life with open hands. It's about resisting the simplistic narratives fed to you and daring to live in the raw, complicated truth. And that, more than anything, is the essence of thinking for yourself. But here's the uncomfortable part. If you do this, if you really choose to think, life gets harder. People will misunderstand you. You may lose friends. You may be mocked, rejected, even feared. Because independent thought is dangerous. It threatens systems built on conformity. It makes people uncomfortable because it reminds them of their own chains. But the alternative? To never think for yourself is to never truly live. Plato's cave prisoners might be content with shadows, but once you see the sunlight, you can never go back. Nietzsche said it best. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. But if you try it, you will be lonely often, and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself.
So I'll leave you with this. If you felt the unease while listening, if something inside you is whispering that maybe, just maybe, you've been living more from borrowed beliefs than from your own soul, then take it seriously. That's the first spark of freedom. You don't have to overthrow the world. You don't have to reject every tradition or every idea you've inherited. But you must begin the hardest, most dangerous, and most rewarding journey a human being can take. The journey of learning to think for yourself. Because in a world where stupidity spreads faster than truth, where conformity is rewarded and independence is punished, the rarest act of rebellion is simply this: to have a mind of your own. And if you choose it, you may lose the comfort of the herd, but you will finally gain the one thing that matters: yourself.